There's more to life than working and paying bills. If you're like most people, you dream of a week filled with more time and more freedom. That's why a growing number of people are joining the FIRE movement. Here's a crash course on the pros and cons of financial independence, as well as some insight into how our family is pursuing FIRE. But before I jump in, please consider giving me the YouTube triple thanks. That's hitting the like button, subscribing to the channel, and leaving a comment down below. Your support is appreciated as I'm growing this small business of mine. Thanks. Okay, what is FIRE? Well, FIRE is a financial movement that stands for Financial Independence, Retire Early. Financial independence is when you no longer have to work. Your passive income covers your annual living expenses. You're covered. The retire early portion of the FIRE movement is when you leave traditional employment to pursue other avenues. Puritans in the movement believe that FIRE involves both achieving financial independence and retiring early from the workforce. However, there are many more people who argue for variations, suggesting that people continue to work if they enjoy it. Rather than having to retire, they view FIRE as a way to make work optional. So why do people pursue FIRE? Well, people are drawn to the FIRE movement because of the freedom it affords them. Wanting more time resonates with everyone. If you're spending 40, 60, or even 80 hours a week working at your job, you might start to feel like there isn't enough time left to do the things you want to do in life. Being drawn to the FIRE movement doesn't mean that you hate your job, it just simply means you're on a quest for more freedom and more control of your time. For some people, it isn't even working that pushes them towards FIRE. They tire of office politics, or they realize commuting 1 to 2 hours a day just isn't ideal. People in the FIRE community are big on asking questions like, what are my other options? Or how can I optimize my day? The FIRE movement is a way to live your life on your own terms, whatever those terms might be. Here are some different levels of FIRE. The FIRE movement is based on the concept of financial independence. However, what financial independence means might depend on who you ask. So FIRE, like all aspects of personal finance, is deeply personal. So how someone defines financial freedom might also depend on which camp within the FIRE movement someone falls into, right? So let's take a look at some of those more popular ones to see which FIRE size fits for you. So first one here is traditional FIRE. Traditionally, FIRE is based on having 25 times your annual expenses saved. Essentially, you use some type of passive income to cover about $60,000 of living expenses each year. To reach FIRE using the 4% withdrawal rule, you need to have $1.5 million saved. However, there are many people who argue that the 4% rule is not conservative enough for early retirees. Calculations surrounding the 4% rule are based on someone of the traditional retirement age. Therefore, many people pursuing FIRE base their calculations on a 3.5% or 3% withdrawal rate. You also have lean FIRE. There are some people who don't want or need to live on $60K a year. They might be living in a lower cost of living area. Or they may have embraced frugality, or they may simply intend to pull in small amounts of income to cover some of their expenses. These people estimate their living expenses to come in around $40,000 annually. Using the 4% rule, someone reaches lean FIRE when they have $1 million invested. And then there's fat FIRE. The opposite of lean FIRE is fat FIRE, like we talked about here. Individuals and families pursuing fat FIRE estimate their annual living expenses to be around $100K or more. Using the 4% rule, these people need to save at least $2.5 million. Using a more conservative withdrawal rate of 3%, that pushes that even higher, so they would need to have around $3 million set aside to be considered fat FIRE. Now, let's talk about the advantages of FIRE. No matter which FIRE camp you fall into, there are many, many advantages of the FIRE movement. One of the first things that pursuing financial independence does is it opens your eyes to finances in general. So the first pro is that you can't hide behind hunches or best guesses. FIRE forces you to confront your spending and your saving. It also makes you acutely aware of your assets, your debts, and your net worth. Once you are armed with that information, you can start to reflect on what is more important for you. And then pro number 2, it gives you flexibility with your goals. Another advantage of the FIRE movement is that there's no one right way to reach FIRE. Some people obtain financial independence by working traditional jobs and investing along the way. In addition to investments, you can also pursue FIRE through real estate or small business ownership. And then there's pro number 3. It supports minimalist living. FIRE can also help people lower their stress levels. In addition to alleviating work-related stress, FIRE can help you tackle other stressors in your life. People in the FIRE community are quick to point out that there's less waste and less consumerism in the lives of people pursuing FIRE. Not only can less stress be good for the individual, but it can also strengthen your marriage and your family relationships. The biggest advantages of embracing the FIRE movement for me have been to learn to spend on what matters and to live more generously. In fact, making charitable giving a family tradition is something that we focus a lot of our energy on as we push towards financial independence. Now, let's talk about some of the pitfalls of FIRE. The FIRE movement is not without its flaws, my friends. One of the biggest issues of the movement are the misunderstandings that surround it. So con number 1, dispute over the definition of FIRE. Lots of people like to banter over what exactly financial independence, retire early means. However, most people in the FIRE community believe that the definition is personal. That's why some people in the FIRE community don't work at all, whereas other people pursue side hustles, they monetize blogs, or they generate income from other passion projects. Con number 2, there's a confusion on who can FIRE and who can't. Perhaps the biggest misconception surrounding the FIRE movement is that people in it are all 6-figure earners who happen to be white males working in tech. That's certainly not the case if you explore the community. In fact, the community is diversifying more every day. Figuring out how to separate the portrayal of the FIRE community by the mainstream media and the community itself can really set the record straight. Con number 3, rushing to financial independence too fast. Another pitfall of FIRE that people might face when getting started with the FIRE movement is feeling like they have to do it all too fast. Financial independence is not about living a joyless life. Austerity is not a prerequisite to FIRE. However, some people think that if they can't change courses or accelerate their paths instantly, then FIRE must not be for them. In fact, FIRE requires planning and patience. If you find yourself getting discouraged, reach out to individuals in the FIRE community for support. Now let's look at some real-life examples of FIRE adopters. In my time as a blogger and a podcaster and even doing this YouTube channel, I have had the opportunity to learn from some major FIRE adopters. 2 common criticisms of the FIRE movement are that FIRE doesn't work if you live in a high cost of living area, and that FIRE isn't for people with kids. These are 2 of the main FIRE adopters that I've interviewed and who prove these criticisms incorrect. Dylan Redling is someone that I interviewed 4 years ago. He and his wife Allison lost their jobs in their early 40s. What started as a year-long sabbatical actually transformed into their early retirement. Thanks to their frugal lifestyle and their consistent investing while they were working, they actually realized that they had amassed a savings of 50 times their annual expenses. Instead of going back to work, they now enjoy a life of financial independence and blogging at Retire by 45. Another interesting case study is Jim White from Route to Retire. He recently moved to Panama with his wife and daughter. Geo arbitrage is part of their FIRE plans. Though they may not live in Panama forever, they are calling it home for now. Their daughter goes to school there and they are embracing a local community. Thanks to financial independence, they are able to give their daughter a different cultural experience and spend more time as a family. Here's a quick list of other FIRE examples. Michael Lacey, who's on his way to FIRE by 40 by paying off his debt, investing, and owning a small business. Jillian Johnsrud, she's a mother of 6, and she achieved financial independence through real estate in her early 30s. Paula Pant from Afford Anything also achieved financial independence through long-distance real estate investing and small business ownership. After saving over a year's worth of expenses, Erica Gillerman and her husband quit their corporate jobs and moved to Hawaii to raise their child. Julian and Kirsten Saunders paid off their mortgage, invested in rentals and the stock market, and built a small digital business to support their FIRE plans. Sometimes examples help when you're wondering how all this FIRE stuff works, so hopefully these were good examples for you. Now I'd like to share my experience with the FIRE movement. As someone who's been part of the movement, it's clear to me that there's no one-size-fits-all approach. Instead, the FIRE movement is all about making money moves that will push you closer towards the life you want to live. When we started digging into the math behind financial independence, it meant looking hard at our expenses. Our biggest expense each month was our mortgage. While some people in the FIRE community certainly have sold their homes and moved to places that are less expensive, we love our house and we knew we didn't want to move. That meant we decided to pay off our mortgage to eliminate the biggest line item in our budget. Once I realized that I was growing more dissatisfied with my work, I started to explore other ways to reach FIRE faster. Real estate is commonly touted as a good way to do that, so we started doing our research and we quickly realized that real estate felt like getting another job. So instead of taking things off of our plate, it would be adding more onto it. That's when we made the decision to look into entrepreneurship as a means to reach financial independence, hence what I'm doing here. While active real estate investing is not for us, we diversify our investments with REITs, and they make up a part of our investment portfolio. That means that years of saving, investing, and now entrepreneurship are helping our family to reach FIRE. In addition to changing how we work, the FIRE movement is also changing how we spend. The FIRE movement doesn't mean ceasing all of our spending. It calls for people to stop spending on things that don't matter to them or add value to their lives. We also make sure to keep spending on things that do matter. Our kids enjoy summer camps and chances to learn new skills like soccer, so we're happy to spend there. We also decided to keep our cleaning lady, which was a non-negotiable for my wife. Being part of the FIRE movement also made me more generous, which is something that was very important for us. Once we had a better picture of our finances, we realized that we were only giving away 1% of our income. That was 2017. The next year, we pushed that to 3%. And then the next year after that, 5%. This laddering up of our charitable giving is something that's really important to us. We now give an additional 5% to family, friends, and neighbors in the form of cash, gifts, and random acts of kindness. It's our own version of 10% giving. One of the biggest criticisms of the FIRE movement is people believing it only works for couples with no kids. Yet my family and I are pursuing financial independence with 2 kids in tow. Here are a few of the different strategies we use to make financial independence work for us. Strategy number 1, learning the value behind money. Raising kids isn't cheap. However, combating consumerism can help. As a family, we are embracing the concept of minimalism and really questioning what we need. We have conversations about clutter, and we are in the habit of asking our kids and ourselves, do we really want that? As a family, we also try to get outside and avoid consumerism. We live in a well-to-do neighborhood, and sometimes that can be tough. Our kids are growing up with other kids, and they're starting to notice more and more what other kids have and how other people's houses look. Nicole and I work to help them understand and embrace our uniqueness. They're starting to realize that they don't have to be like everyone else all the time, which is important. Strategy number 2, savings lessons now and later. We are trying to impart financial lessons early for our kids, and our kids are already getting into it. They do chores to earn money, and we do this in order to help them understand the importance of hard work and making contributions. It also demonstrates that work is rewarded. Our kids earn their age every week, which means our 9-year-old daughter earns $9 every week. Once our kids earn their money, we help them look at their digital buckets through Ally and decide where to put it. Currently, we have these digital buckets: save, spend, give, and invest. With each conversation, we're helping them be more thoughtful with their spending and their savings. With a focus on the future, we started a 529 account for both of our kids right when they were born. Getting an early start on college savings should allow compounding to do a lot of the heavy lifting for us. However, we know that we won't be able to reach their full tuition. It's just bonkers the amount of money it's going to cost. That means we're already talking to them about working in high school and in college to offset some of the costs. Plus, we're taking note of what other families are doing with their older kids. For instance, some families do Scholarship Sunday. That means they sit down each Sunday and their child applies to at least one scholarship. After working at this thing for a little while, the best piece of advice I can give to you is not to expect to reach financial independence overnight. Don't get overwhelmed. Instead, look at it in steps over time. The very first thing you can do to start is build a budget. Then, starting the following week or the following month, try to reduce some of your expenses. Finally, strategize to find ways to boost your income. Work on these steps incrementally with the understanding that you don't have to be perfect on these steps before moving on. Remember that perfection is the enemy of progress. Keep moving forward rather than waiting to get everything just right. If you're ready to dive into the FIRE movement, but you have a partner or a family, it's important to start having conversations about money. Not everyone is gonna enjoy looking at the numbers or diving into spreadsheets like me. Instead, focus on goals or dreams and wants. Once your partner or your family starts to view money as a tool to make these things happen, it makes it easier to talk about your finances and move towards the same page. Finally, you want to find an accountability partner. Of course, that could be someone in your house, maybe another family member, or even just a friend. However, you also may want to just consider the internet. There are many Facebook groups of like-minded people that you can join. Thriving Families is our Facebook group, and in there you'll find people who are willing to support you no matter where you are on your financial journey. So, do you want more control over how you spend your time? Are you feeling like your priorities aren't driving your day-to-day living? It may be time for you to explore the FIRE movement. One of the first steps you can take to learn more about your own finances is to partner up with people in the FIRE community. While everyone may define FIRE a bit differently, there is definitely one thing about everyone in the FIRE community that we all have in common: a willingness to share their insights and help others succeed. Connect with one example of the FIRE community at the Thriving Families Facebook group, and I'll put the link in the notes below. But enough for me. I would love to hear from you. What do you think of the FIRE movement? What are some pros or what are some cons of FIRE for you? Please let me know in the comments below. This is Andy Hill from Marriage, Kids, and Money signing off. Carpe diem.